Welcome to One Word Stories. I'm really happy to welcome a very good friend of mine, Mithun Mridha, who comes originally from India, is based in Paris, and actually has been living in 4 countries. Nevertheless, he has extensively traveled to 60 countries around the world. And what is fantastic is that we had the opportunity to meet in different locations, also to work together, to offer an open space together in Leuven, as I remember, in Belgium. However, let me share, first of all, the professional side Mithun brings also, because Mithun is actually an organizational transformation consultant at Altran that is part of Capgemini in Paris. And he works as a guest lecturer at different MBA schools, also Paris Dauphine, EM Normandie, Freie Universität in Berlin. And what is really important is that he works as an agile coach and helps senior executives to foster this agile mind, strategic alignment, and improve project performance. I'm really happy to welcome you, Mithun. A very warm welcome in the virtual space this time.
Thank you. So excited to be here, and thanks for coming up with this idea. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I really have all these excellent memories of us working or even meeting and having all these discussions in all these locations.
Yeah.
Valencia, Leuven, Paris, Vienna, so many locations.
And in
It's great.
India,
Yeah,
actually
and in
also in
India.
India,
Oh
yeah,
yes,
in,
and in
in
India.
Pune, yeah. It was really fantastic, yeah. Yeah, so Mithun, I'm spreading this invitation because of curiosity. When you were sharing also your experiences as an agile coach, I was thinking, okay, what about these huge narratives that are actually part of our reality at the moment? That there are people from different cultures that more tend to be agile than the others. And isn't it a little bit of, again, the danger of a single story and again, generalization, going towards stereotypes and cliches?
I would say a lot, yes. And absolutely, it's a very dangerous to ask the question in the first place. What I have been exploring this topic actually because I have several webinars and presentations, even a keynote speech coming up on this topic where I'll be really exploring on agility across cultures. A few conferences in the US and also in Europe. And the idea is that we wanted to really explore, like, is there a link between the culture, the way culture is perceived by the teams, and agility. So with one of my colleagues, Anke from Munich, we interviewed agile coaches from more than 15 countries, and a lot of stories, a lot of interesting observations came out. I think I can say there are some ceremonies, some rituals from agile which work well in certain cultures. I can say yes, they could work, but actually, if you go a bit deeper, if you want to say that one culture is better with a methodology like agile, that would be too much of a generalization and too much of a risk, because it's a mindset change. There might be things you might be doing naturally, so it comes naturally to you to think in a certain way. But then agile as a method, it's much more complete, much more complex, and there are parts of it which are very structured. There are parts of it which are spontaneous. And a lot of times what is not understood, or what is more a common understanding or idea about agile, is not a very good complete comprehensive understanding of agile, what agility really means. People say like agility means like no documentation. We said like, yeah, one of the four agile values is, yeah, of course you focus on a product which really works instead of full documentation. But it doesn't mean that you don't document, and you have to document. Documentation will be always there. uh, what is different is that you won't wait until you have the complete description, complete documentation about what you exactly want to produce in that project. You won't wait until that time to start working. So it's an iterative manner. So you would be focusing on creating something that works with a few guiding principles. So there are four values and 12 principles which have been written in the Agile Manifesto in 2001. And a lot of things have evolved. One of the principle is face to face. Always have face to face instead of other virtual communication or interaction. And actually, in a COVID situation, and in all the constraints that we have been going through in the last 2 years, this whole concept of face-to-face completely changed. And this came up in all the discussions with our clients. Like a lot of our clients are struggling with the leadership, how to lead my team when I'm all the way, when I see my team only once a week face to face.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
So quite a long answer to your question, but I would say yes, there is absolutely no culture, I would say, that you can say that the culture is really good for agility. I think it's you have to go much more deeper into what agility means to you, to your product, to your organization. What kind of mindset do you have? And a lot of times people are confusing agility. They will always say, yes, we'll do it in agile mode. And this being agile, rather than I'm following a methodology which is agile, so I'm respecting all the processes, I'm doing all my rituals, I'm doing my stand-up meetings, I'm doing my daily stand-up meetings, I'm doing my ceremony like the sprint planning, sprint review, all these which is described in the method. Still, you might not be agile just because you are following all the processes. Certain cultures might find it easy to do certain kind of rituals. So that's absolutely true. And certain kind of some cultures might have difficulty. I'll give an example. On one of our projects, we had a Scrum team with a product owner from India, and you know that India is a place where you would never use the word no. The no is always avoided. And actually, this really, like, no means a lot of things. You are like blocking. You cannot block someone, or you cannot scrap out a relationship because you just said no. So the product owner was saying yes and yes and yes at all times. And his product backlog, so that the place where you collect all the requirements, all the things that have to be made, became a never-ending product backlog. And just because this product owner couldn't say no. We have a team, one of my colleagues in Australia, they were doing a integration meeting where they invited a whole Scrum team from China to all the way to come to Australia and work with them for 3 months. I really like the idea. Okay, this was before COVID. For 3 months, they would work together so that they really get integrated into the team, that they get the real onboarding, and then they go back to their country. So So what I saw is that this product owner and the scrum master, especially the scrum master from China, at the end of her first day, she started crying.
Mm.
And I was like, why? Because she found all the exchanges between the teams to be overwhelming, to be too direct, to be very even violent. She was saying,
Mm.
you are not taking care of each other. You're not being nice. You're not being gentle to each other.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and and then to my colleague who is the agile coach, it never occurred to him that for him it was like absolutely normal. This is the business as usual. This is how teams react. This is how teams work here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. You have just shared fantastic, examples showing also that this different steps during the agile working process can be simply understood differently in different cultures. And it's really fascinating to see also this world of obviousness, how it kicks in and how much emotional impact it has got on us. When you also mentioned the Chinese colleague, completely overwhelmed with everything what was going on in Australia. I can also refer to it because I still remember that there were some comments after one meeting of a multicultural team that were people from China, from Poland, from Germany, and from France. And I did the facilitation. And at one point, the guy said, yes, but can you imagine to have a dinner right now in the evening? The guys from Germany, they quarreled. I said, no, they didn't quarrel. They discussed. They simply discussed. They used rational arguments. Right now, they are going to have a glass of beer as if nothing had happened, even if the tone of the discussion might have been a little bit surprising for you. It's everything okay. So,
Yeah.
this is also something that comes to my head in terms of this agile working that we definitely need additionally to this knowing the process, also knowing these intercultural differences so that we can also host such a space and to be a good scrum master, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of things you can see also in written. So those are the tiny bits, but the more you analyze, the more you find differences, like due to the cultural elements. For example, how you document, how you write your stories. So
Mm.
in the agile context, so you have stories, user story you call, which is actually which is expressed. How is it expressed? How is it written? It's very different when you see teams, how they document their backlog in Germany compared to another team working in France or in India or in Brazil. So is it a more oral culture? Is it a more documented culture? How do you do the documentation? Are you straight to the point? Are you running around the bush? Are you including a lot of context? Are you excluding the context? Something which is really important about to remember about agile is like you are actually finally having a team that is self-managed, completely self autonomous teams. The team decides. There is no boss, there
Yeah.
is no project manager. What happens in some cultures where they are hierarchy loving cultures, or cultures where we're used to hierarchy, and they have a tendency to create hierarchy if there is no hierarchy. And this was
Mm.
seen in teams in especially in Asia, where the scrum master, although the role of a scrum master is actually a facilitator in the team, he has to facilitate, he has to make sure that all the rituals are carried out, that the method and that agile methodology is respected. And but he's in no way the boss, but he was actually given this role. He was seen as a boss, he was seen as a manager. So this was very interesting culturally, that when there are no hierarchies, people have a tendency to create hierarchy in hierarchy loving cultures, which changes completely.
Yeah.
And so there might be micro differences really between the people, and that might lead to mini and micro confusions, and actually it escalates over time. I realize that a lot of our conversations when you're having, especially with agile teams, it's a human connection that you are trying to create. And if you want to have a more human connection, it is always through stories.
How do you actually work with stories, especially in this agile context?
Yeah, it's funny you talk about that. I mean, I have always been a fan of storytelling, and I think it's the most natural way of listening. I think I was not good at storytelling initially, so it took me a long time to really get into the nuts and bolts of storytelling.
So what
Uh,
actually happened that you were able to dive deeper?
I think I was not able to keep the attention of people sometimes when I was talking about things. The story was not clear, the structure was maybe not clear. It didn't make the effect that I wanted out of the story. I realized it more than 10 years ago. I would say something between 10 and 15 years, that stories are finally the currency. If you want to really connect, if you want to really come across some ideas, you want your ideas to be heard and to be distilled and effective. And if you want your ideas to be memorable, you have to find a way for it to make a difference, to connect, to be emotional, because we are emotional beings finally. So we do need that way, that simple structure of a story to understand much more complex things.
Yeah,
So
you are
and
just
and
impressive.
and you are always doing the meaning making. The meaning making is done through stories. So for me, that was an interesting realization. So I started reading books like from John McKee, the story, screenwriting, books on screenwriting, books from Joseph Campbell. So all the literature that exists, like on storytelling. So of course you have to go through the basics, and then I have many mentors with whom I have worked on the storytelling structures. It took a long time, but for me it was also that always trying out, testing testing the structure, testing the stories. And for me, the best ways to try out your storytelling skills are kids. So just go and I was always testing my stories, like 4-year-old, 5-year-old. They're the perfect people to, if your story is not good, immediately just say, no, stop, another story. And if it's good, if
Mm.
it's making a difference, say, hey, one more. And I remember my friend Alexi, his two daughters, now they are like quite, they've grown a lot. But when they were kids, I remember testing like a few stories which I improvised, and they would just after 2 hours they would say like, no, more, we want another story, another story, we won't let you go. And that's the excellent test. And I, to anyone wants to try out stories, try out on kids.
Yeah.
That's the best test.
Yeah. It's the truth. And by the way, it's also, this perspective change, because I still remember people asking me, how to deliver a very complex presentation, and, also to build in the story and so on and so forth. I say, imagine that you are trying to describe this complex process to a 5-year-old kid. And if you are able to describe it in such a way that this kid understands it, or it's, smiling and ask curious questions, then you're on a good path. So, people are laughing in this moment, but this is exactly the point, that We complicate sometimes things way too much. And yes, less is more. Simple is this what is required currently more and more. And especially right now in the COVID time, when we don't bring so much patience in the virtual meetings, this is also something that is extremely important, that we really keep it simple and sweet, or sweet and simple. The key is
Absolutely.
simple. Yeah. And it brings me also, of course, to this question, because you mentioned also the COVID. I have just mentioned in this last sentence. What was such a one word that actually was supportive for you during this tough time?
For me, the word would be kaleidoscope. And I use it as a metaphor. For
Mm,
me, it's I go back to the time when I got my first kaleidoscope. I was 10, and there was this man who made those kaleidoscopes. He had like around 20 of them on a over bridge, on a bridge on that footbridge on one of the stations in one of the suburbs in Mumbai. And I absolutely wanted to see what it is, and I just told my mom, like, I have to go and let me check. And my mom was saying, no, those are like, not worth it, they break in one day, it will be gone. So no, no, I absolutely want to see it. And when I saw it, and they were like glass, they were like fake crystals, pieces of glass, colored pieces of glass, jewels, but everything fake, of course. But when you would turn it
mm.
and turn it and turn it, and I could do that for hours. And I could always discover a new pattern, I discover a new design. And although what I learned really was that you don't need a lot of ingredients, like you said, simple, less is more. So a very few fine things, and you can put it into different patterns. And those patterns, if you use those glasses for the right reflection, you might get much different designs, and you can come up with so many ways of perceiving the designs, conceiving the designs out of very few elements. And actually, I think that's something what I do. I try to see the patterns, I try to see the observe patterns, and then I also try to see what kind of new patterns can be created. And stories also are a part of that, because what kind of pattern are you thinking? Well, are you going round and round, or are you going straight? Are you being creative? Are you taking the time to create a positive human environment around you? Are you ready to motivate yourself? Can you motivate a whole team? So all of those things matter, because finally what it comes down to is, what story are you telling yourself, and what is the story you are creating with your team? uh,
Yes, yes,
and
definitely. I love this metaphor. And when you describe it, I immediately have to picture one beautiful Hindu tradition, actually, Rangoli. The Rangoli also showing the patterns made by women on the floors in front of the households, and using, just limestone and colored sand, and maybe also some quartz powder, some flowers, just petals. And they are making it in such a beautiful way. And everybody is having completely different pattern. Yeah. So it's not so much about, uh, I don't know, just copying something and having kind of competition, but really being creative in this very moment and enjoying the moment. This is also, as I understand, during the Diwali time. So also, the lights. You can tell for sure much, much better stories than I
Yeah.
can.
I mean, Rangoli is a very old tradition, and actually, you have to think about the significance of it. It's a sign of welcome. It's a sign of connection. So people draw it on the pavement or in front of their door, and normally it means that that's the bridge to the outside world. So that's a bridge that connects the outside world to the inside world. And so I'm welcoming you with this Rangoli. So that, and what is really fascinating about a Rangoli is that it can be intricate, it can be extremely detailed, it can be very beautiful, but it's ephemeral. So it won't stay for long. There are people who do a rangoli every day. The next morning they would be wiping it out and they would be doing a new one. And you said something about the competition, but I would let you know that there are many competitions in
Oh,
India.
really? For
The
the most
rangoli
beautiful
competition.
Rangoli?
Yeah, and actually there are competitions even in national level youth
Okay.
festivals. And when I was in the engineering school, there were those competition. I remember particularly one where so I was good in drawing and painting. So I had won many awards, even up to the national level in painting in my school times.
Mhm.
And so this was the National Institute of Foundry and Forge Technology, NIFT, in Ranchi, India. Where I was doing my engineering, in it, and they had this national youth festival, Jinx, every year. And
Hmm.
I was asked by one of my seniors, Abhay Singh, that I should definitely participate in the Rangoli. I said, like, no, that's crazy. I have never done it. I'll never manage it. And I see the competition. Most of them were girls, and not just any people. They were girls who did Rangoli maybe every day since the age of 10, and I was competing against them. But then
Mhm.
what is very interesting was, like, I knew I could never beat them in their art, but I had to find a way to do something. And that's where the introspection came. I took the time to think about what was I was actually for 10 minutes I was just observing. I didn't even do anything. I was seeing the hall, and they were all with their designs, and those designs were those beautiful traditional Indian designs. And you have very different forms, and they were doing them, and it's very detailed, it's very fine, and they were so proficient at it, and they could do it. I couldn't do that little design and be put that powdered color at such detail. That was not my forte. So I had to find something. So when I was looking and I was thinking, and sometimes, like, inspiration dwelled, I said, like, I'll do something completely different. I did a rangoli which was like perhaps 10 to 20 times larger than all of the other rangolis. So I took a huge part of the whole hall where this competition was taking place, and I drew a design. I created it of a modern. It was of a modern woman. It was a silhouette, and I used colors which would not be used very often in Rangoli.
Mhm.
And then it was so huge. So since I made it like such a big one, I didn't need that huge effort of that finesse of putting the powder. So I put them, and it since it was much bigger, I could make mistakes and I could still correct. If I put a bit too much of powder somewhere, I could do it. And I was like, even many years before I discovered agility, actually I was being agile at creating this whole rangoli. And the funny part was the 2 days later, at there were the word awards were being announced, and when the name came, I couldn't believe. Nobody could believe I got the gold medal in the first prize in that contest. I would say like, yeah, I mean, like think about like the Rangoli, like the design, what kind of patterns are existing? Are you stuck in those same patterns? I think what I was trying to do was to change the pattern, to
Mm.
find something completely new, to break the pattern, and to challenge the status quo. And that was what happened. The next years, I observed a visible change in that contest.
Wow.
More and more men were participating in that
Oh,
contest.
wow. Interesting. Very, very powerful story. It's actually also, the story you say that it's also about, changing the pattern. What I hear also additionally is also the story of courage and also knowing very well your skills, knowing how you can be playful about, your own skills and your talent and investing time and energy in the strength and not taking her too much of something that wouldn't most probably be so successful. I love it, this out of box thinking. And what I hear is also this jugaad, so being creative, even
Yeah.
if the,
And
yeah,
also taking the time to just being nice to yourself, because we
yeah,
are always too tough to ourselves, and we are
yeah,
very critical of ourselves, and we always have too much of expectations. And actually, I was there in a contest where I had nothing to lose,
yeah.
and absolutely nothing to lose because nobody knew me, and that was the first Rangoli. So and now I see more pictures of Rangoli competitions. It's a now it's there are more and more people who take it seriously. But it's beautiful to see that you can make all of that and you would be ready to wipe it out the next day. And that's something what I find powerful. It's you can create all that and it's not permanent, but you know that you'll create even a better design the next day. And I think how can you use that idea of a Rangoli? I think it's very powerful. In India, we are not, I mean, I would say I can speak for most of my friends. They're not very proud of this talking about these traditions. The people are actually always thinking like, yeah, the best things are in the West. Maybe there is something like the West is copying the East and the East is copying the West. This has been happening for more than 60 years. You can see the examples, like there are more yoga practitioners in Germany, I would say, than people doing serious levels of yoga in India. And I would say, yeah, this is amazing. And there are serious schools of salsa and belly dancing in India that I discovered recently. I had no idea that these schools exist, that these people spend so much of their time on those dancing skills. But yes, this change exchange in terms of art is going on for a long time, and Indians wouldn't talk about these little cultural traits, how much it could mean. But I think it's a time also to go in to focus on what you stand for and what kind of new patterns can you see when you can go through your own rituals. So I think people get more stuck in the rituals, but they are not using those rituals to get something even greater. And that's the problem of getting stuck in the story, getting stuck in the pattern, focusing only on doing the pattern. And so that I can tie it back to agility. People are also very easily lost in the rituals. They're not trying to be real agile in their mindset.
So what I hear is more focus on creativity, letting go, having less perfectionism than sticking to the framework. And this is what I wish both of us actually, and also the people who have listened to us currently, because it's not only part of the game for the agile success, but in general for life.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Thank you.
especially in these term times when we are supposed to work in a virtual or hybrid environment, where we really need to keep our focus, we need to keep the connection, we need to stay human, and it's important to really be connected with people, with the team, with and with our own emotion, with our own level of energy and the focus, like my mentor Skip Archimedes, who always says, wherever focus goes, energy flows. So you have
Mhm.
to think about it. Where is your focus?
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Mithun, so much for all the inspirations, for sharing your stories, for this wonderful, yes, metaphors of kaleidoscopes or Rangoli, with all these wonderful examples, how it relates also to the agile working. And I wish you lots of wonderful projects inspired by art and rituals, and not only.
Thank you. I love this discussion, and always a pleasure to spend time with you. And I hope we get to meet very soon in a real face-to-face conference.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Everything ahead. Take care.
Thank you.